What makes you angry about LA?
Kind of smell like shit, but it's alright.
Homeless on every corner.
LA isn't a city, it's a public toilet at this point.
I don't want to walk to my car and go, oops, I stepped in human feces.
Stop scrolling right now. A Los Angeles resident just called the entire city a public toilet on camera, and then admitted they are still voting for the exact same politicians who ruined it. You have to see this absolute delusion to believe it.
Actually, I'm not angry about LA. There's traffic, but it's been like that forever.
There's homelessness, but it's been like that forever.
Yeah.
Poverty, period.
The potholes.
What is Mayor Bass doing to solve these problems?
No, I didn't heard nothing.
Ain't nothing changed.
Nothing.
Still smell like shit. I haven't seen none.
I wonder sometimes.
Who were you voting for?
Bass.
Right. Nothing that Bass has done, but you're going to vote for her.
I'm not even voting.
Does it matter? It really doesn't matter.
Spencer Pratt.
Spencer Pratt.
We're going to have a Pratt Daddy summer, I'll tell you that.
He actually tells us the truth. He tells you the real hard truth of what's going on.
Karen Bass.
What is Karen Bass's greatest accomplishment?
Removing the homeless.
Yeah, she did a great job with that.
I believe so. Do you agree?
No.
Absolutely not.
It's been a year and a half since the Palisades fire, and practically nothing has been rebuilt. If this was a year and a half ago, I would be in someone's house right now.
Did Karen Bass do a good job handling the Palisade fires?
Absolutely not. She wasn't even here.
She could have done a better job of throwing a ball from here to China.
She didn't do a great job.
So just so we're counting, can't name an accomplishment of Karen Bass, didn't do a good job in the fires, but she's still your girl.
She's still my girl.
Wait, did you actually listen to the sheer cognitive dissonance happening in these interviews? These people are staring directly into a camera, openly admitting that Los Angeles has turned into an unlivable disaster zone filled with human waste, yet they cannot break free from their political programming. When the interviewer presses them to name a single accomplishment by Mayor Karen Bass, they literally draw a blank. One voter even admits Bass failed to handle the catastrophic Palisades fire and was completely absent, but proudly declares she's still my girl. This is exactly why the political establishment continues to run these cities into the ground. They know they can deliver absolutely zero results, allow the infrastructure to rot, and still rely on blind tribal loyalty at the ballot box. But pay close attention to the people who are finally waking up. The ones talking about a Pratt Daddy summer are exhausted voters who have realized that voting for a disruptor is the only logical response when the legacy politicians refuse to do their jobs. It's a complete collapse of the progressive illusion.
Do you still think that 9/11 was an inside job?
What I've learned, almost 20 years later is it's actually the negligence of the people in power. I would have loved to have gone along with when my house burned down and my parents' house burned down, everyone saying it was lasers, it was a land grab, it was just like Maui, but it's not. The reality is people in charge fail us as taxpayers. And when you're listening to that audio, that's a 21, 22-year-old person. I'm now 42 and have experienced city negligence, state negligence. And I've learned a lot about it. It's actually worse than a conspiracy. It's that we have people in charge that make mistakes that get people killed. So unfortunately, I was young and naive to understanding how there is people that will fail citizens across the board. And I would have to go back and look at all that. I haven't watched any of those things in 20 years or whatever. But I bet now with my fresh eyes of surviving the city's negligence that burned 12 people in my neighborhood alive, 7,000 structures,
it was horrible.
And seeing how fast the internet said that was a conspiracy and how I had to be like, no, this is how it happened, this, and this. Now with new fresh eyes, I'm sure I would look at that a lot different. I think anytime we see something that's just so shocking and unbelievable, we as humans want to try to find excuses, but sometimes the excuses are just real simple. People failed us as taxpayers.
So that interview was in 2009. It was in July 2009, so you were almost 26 years old, just to be clear. Do you regret saying that? I mean, do you now accept that 9/11 was because of al-Qaeda terrorists, not because of an inside job by the U.S. government?
Well, no, again, what I'm saying is I believe a lot of people failed to allow the al-Qaeda terrorists to get in. So I think the negligence in government allowed, not on purpose, but just failures. They didn't burn my house down on purpose. They just failed.
Look at how brilliantly Spencer Pratt handles this exact moment. CNN's Jake Tapper is aggressively trying to set a trap by digging up comments Pratt made 2 decades ago about 9/11, hoping to completely derail his momentum. But Pratt doesn't take the bait, and he doesn't apologize for questioning authority. Instead, he masterfully pivots the conversation directly back to the catastrophic negligence of government bureaucrats. He uses the horrific fires that burned down his own neighborhood as a visceral example of how the people in charge actively fail the citizens they are sworn to protect. Notice how completely disarmed Tapper becomes when Pratt frames it as sheer incompetence rather than a wild conspiracy. This is a masterclass in hostile media management. Traditional politicians would have crumbled, apologized, and let the anchor control the entire narrative. Pratt completely flips the script, transforming a supposed scandal into a blistering critique of government failure. This raw, unpolished authenticity is exactly why voters are flocking to him. He speaks like a normal human being who has actually lived through the consequences of bureaucratic disasters.
It costs less than $100 a year to register your vehicle. Here in California, I've heard stories of people paying over $2,000. It's totally outrageous. Another complete rip-off from the Democrat machine. When you look at where the money goes, it's all these weird little slush funds. There's something called the Transportation Improvement Fund. What are they improving? Nothing's getting better. In fact, in exchange for the highest vehicle registration, we've got the worst roads in America. So we're going to cap vehicle registration at a simple flat registration fee, $71 per vehicle per year. That actually gives the same amount of money going into roads as we have now. What we're cutting out is all this bloat and BS in the system. And then the fourth tax change, it doesn't affect so many people, but the people it affects are the ones we should really be valuing, cherishing, and supporting in our communities, and that's our veterans. In most other states, veterans don't pay income tax. They don't pay property tax. These people have given so much to us. It's time we gave back something to them.
Did you catch that specific number? Steve Hilton is promising to cap California vehicle registration fees at an absolute flat rate of $71. This strikes at the very core of everyday financial frustration for working-class citizens. For years, the Democratic machine in California has utilized obscure slush funds to aggressively tax drivers, forcing people to pay thousands of dollars just to legally drive their cars, all while the state boasts some of the worst road conditions in the entire country. Listen to how methodically Hilton breaks down the scam. He exposes the so-called Transportation Improvement Fund for exactly what it is: a massive bureaucratic bloat system that funnels tax dollars away from actual infrastructure. This is how you run a populist campaign. You don't get bogged down in abstract political theory. You attack the specific, tangible ripoffs that ordinary people encounter every single year when they open their mail. He is offering a direct, measurable financial relief plan, which is utterly terrifying to the political class that relies on bleeding the taxpayers dry to fund their bloated pet projects.
There's a very simple truth, which everyone in California knows, which is that taxes are too high, and we need taxes to be lower. And they're especially too high for working people in California. You got people on 70, 80, 90 grand in California, which doesn't get you very far, who are paying 9.3% state income tax. That is higher than the top rate in most other states. That's why my plan eliminates state income tax under 100 grand. And by the way, if you think that it can't get worse in California, I've got 2 words for you: Tom Steyer. Under Tom Steyer, the taxes will be higher, gas prices will be higher, everything will be higher with Steyer.
Okay. Pay very close attention to the sheer simplicity of this economic pitch. Eliminating the state income tax for anyone making under $100,000 is a complete game changer for the middle class in California. Hilton is aggressively pointing out the absolute absurdity of taxing everyday workers who are barely scraping by on an $80,000 salary at a staggering 9% rate. That is literally higher than the top tax bracket in a majority of other American states. The establishment politicians rely heavily on the working class accepting this financial abuse as completely normal, but it isn't. When a Republican candidate can confidently step up in one of the deepest blue states in the country and articulate exactly how the state is systematically robbing the working class, it creates a massive political earthquake. This directly challenges the core progressive narrative. Voters are fundamentally exhausted by politicians who demand more of their paycheck while delivering absolutely nothing but rising crime and decaying infrastructure in return. This is a message of immediate, radical financial liberation.
I don't want anybody to endorse me except for the moms and the animal lovers in LA. That's my entire vote.
Yeah.
Because that's, so I'm cool if no celebrity ever endorses me. I actually love when the celebrities attack me because then I'm like, oh, I am doing so well.
Watch how effortlessly Spencer Pratt dismantles the entire concept of the celebrity endorsement. While the current mayor, Karen Bass, is desperately trotting out massive Hollywood elites like Jimmy Kimmel and Jane Fonda to save her failing campaign, Pratt completely rejects the Hollywood matrix. He explicitly says he only wants the endorsement of everyday moms and animal lovers. This is an incredibly calculated and brilliant political move. In modern politics, an endorsement from an ultra-wealthy, out-of-touch celebrity is basically a kiss of death to the working-class voter. People are completely sick of being lectured about politics by multimillionaires who live behind massive security gates and never have to step foot on a filthy city sidewalk. By openly welcoming the attacks from the Hollywood elite, Pratt immediately signals to the everyday voter that he is not part of the corrupt club. He is effectively weaponizing the establishment's hatred of him to prove his own authenticity. It is a stunningly effective populist strategy that completely neutralizes his opponent's biggest perceived advantage.
It's time for billionaires like me and big corporations to buy into the future of California and be willing to pay more. A lot of people in California are acting as if we have a zero-sum game, and they're defending their wealth and they're trying to make sure that they minimize their taxes. I am not scared about paying more money.
Listen incredibly closely to what Tom Steyer is actually proposing right here. He is proudly promising a 5% wealth tax and openly stating that he is not scared about paying more money to the government. This is the ultimate peak delusion of the billionaire class. When you are worth billions of dollars, a massive tax hike is just a minor inconvenience. But for the rest of the economy, it is an absolute death sentence. Notice the incredible disconnect in his messaging. He is framing higher taxes as a moral obligation, completely ignoring the fact that California already heavily taxes its citizens while failing to provide basic security or infrastructure. The politicians pushing these aggressive tax hikes never actually solve the problems. They just feed the endless, bloated bureaucracy. The working class understands that whenever a politician promises to strictly tax the rich, the financial burden inevitably trickles straight down to the everyday consumer. It's a deeply out-of-touch progressive fantasy that is actively driving thousands of businesses to literally pack up and flee the state entirely.
Chances are up significantly over the last few months. You know, you go back a few months ago, February 26th, he had just a 7% chance. What is that? That's 5 plus 2. Now, it's up like a rocket. There's a pretty decent chance of it. It's now up over a quarter, a 27% chance.
Look at the undeniable shock on this news anchor's face. The mainstream media is being forced to report on live television that Spencer Pratt's chances of becoming the next mayor of Los Angeles have skyrocketed to 27%. Just a few short months ago, the establishment completely wrote him off as a joke, with only a 7% chance. But here is the brutal reality the media doesn't want to admit. Political momentum is entirely driven by absolute frustration. When you have an entire city suffocating under the weight of terrible leadership, a reality TV star who simply speaks the unvarnished truth becomes an incredibly viable candidate. The betting markets are rarely wrong because people are putting their actual, hard-earned money on the line, not just answering a biased poll. The establishment is completely terrified because they are losing their absolute grip on the narrative. The voters are clearly signaling that they would rather elect an unpredictable outsider than endure another 4 years of manufactured political decline. The system is actively breaking down in real time. The political establishment is absolutely terrified because the voters are finally waking up. Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.